Who's the Treasury Secretary?
Geithner.
We're back here on the platform, and we are speaking with Dr. Robert P. Murphy today. And I remember the term, as you reminded me during the commercial break, of irrational exuberance. Would you agree with Alan Greenspan that irrational exuberance caused this particular recession in the United States?
Well, certainly part of what fueled it was people irrationally thought their home prices were going to keep rising at double-digit rates. And that, in retrospect, people can't believe they thought that. But I think Greenspan himself had a lot to do with it because he cut interest rates down to 1% and held them there for a year. And the way you do that is you pump money into the credit markets. So I think he helped fuel the boom, and now he doesn't want to take responsibility for that. He's saying, well, it wasn't my fault. It was the Chinese were saving too much.
He doesn't want to take responsibility for the bust.
Right, exactly.
After having fueled the boom.
Right.
Okay.
But on the other hand, the Chinese keep pumping money, and they're even more closely tied to the U.S. economy. And just last week, Mr. Geithner was over in China. Was he appeasing them or what?
Well, I think so, and that's part of why my outlook is so grim right now, and is that I think the moment the Chinese central bank or other central banks around the world, when they say publicly we're either going to stop accumulating dollars or we're going to start selling off our U.S. Treasury securities, that people around the world will follow suit, and then you'll see the dollar fall very rapidly. So you're right, that the U.S. officials right now, they have to keep China happy, and I'm sure you're aware of all these central bankers saying things about, well, maybe we should go to a basket of currencies, or maybe we should have the IMF issue SDRs and things like that, because people are afraid. They know how much Bernanke has printed, and they're afraid there's going to be price inflation in U.S. dollars.
But Dr. Murphy, a lot of people are calling for reform of the international monetary system. What is your view on that?
Well, I certainly think it's not healthy that the whole world is dependent on the judgment and skill of one Federal Reserve chairman. That's too much power for any one human being to have. And that in a very real sense, I think Alan Greenspan is the single person most responsible for the current situation in the global economy. I mean, there's plenty of other factors, but I think it was his mistake in pumping in too much liquidity. So I definitely would support moving away from a dollar-based reserve. I'm not too happy with a lot of the alternatives people have suggested, because I would like to just depoliticize it and go back to something like a gold standard. But again, moving away from just having complete dollar hegemony, I think, is a good thing for the world.
Well, why would you blame Alan Greenspan? You had governments from around the world investing in America. You had them buying into the Treasury bonds in the Federal Reserve. And you had companies like Lehman Brothers and the rest of them who were handling these major transactions. They were investing in different things in America, in the housing market. Why would you blame Alan Greenspan for the level of greed that took place in America?
Well, I'm not saying he was solely responsible, but if I had to pick one person who was the most, it would be him. And again, because I think he took interest rates down far too low after the September 11th attacks and fueled the housing boom, and I think he left them too low for too long. That in his mind, he was sparing the U.S. a painful recession, not realizing he was sowing the seeds for what came afterward.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Murphy, I mean, what you say sounds good, right? But isn't that a hindsight?
Well, it's certainly true that it is, obviously hindsight's better, but there were plenty of people who think the way I do, who have the same critique of the Federal Reserve System and causing boom-bust cycles, that back as early as 2004 they were saying there's a housing bubble underway and Greenspan needs to raise interest rates. So it's not completely just playing Monday morning quarterback, but it's...
But do you think in a country like America,
mm-hmm.
where politics has such a prominent role to play, that a government can really sit back and do nothing? I mean, could let AIG fail? Could let General Motors go bankrupt? Could let all these Bank of America and all these other banks just go out of business? I don't know. No responsible government could do that.
Well, I agree. No government is going to do that and remain in power.
No responsible government. To me, that'd be the height of irresponsibility.
Again, I'm just repeating myself, but I think the problems are going to be that much worse a few years from now, and then people are going to wonder what's the responsible government at that time going to do.
What could be that scenario that would make the situation worse a few years from now?
Oh, I think that you're just going to have more companies that are in trouble. Unemployment is going to be even higher, and the government's already going to be that many trillions of dollars deeper into debt. And so the trade-offs that we face now, do we spend more money? Do we pump in more money through the credit markets? It's going to be a problem. And I think at some point you're going to see inflation rising. So right now, this strange scenario where the Federal Reserve has literally pumped in hundreds of billions of new dollars into the economy, and prices aren't rising, and bond yields are very low. But I think a few years from now, let's just say that you have 10% inflation and unemployment still 8%. That's going to be a much more awkward position, and policymakers aren't going to know which way to go. Whereas right now, the trade-offs seem a lot more tolerable.
You're almost suggesting that capitalism is not working in America.
No, I'm suggesting the exact opposite. I want to give capitalism a chance. That's my whole point, is the Federal Reserve is not part of the free market. That's a government entity that was established that centrally